Do I think that when it comes to XCN, personally for me, it has a good narrative? I would say yes, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though I'll talk about 25 cents later. But still, why do I think that way? It's because if we take a look at Onyx, what does it even say, right? When it comes to their site, they even talk about how it's built on Arbitrum and it's secured by Base. Now we got to think about this. Why is this pretty interesting? It's because if we take a look at Arbitrum, it's one of the leading Ethereum layer 2s out there. Granted, if we take a look at Arbitrum's native token called ARB, which is spelled ARB, it's had a pretty big pullback. I'm totally aware of that, but still, Arbitrum has done very well, historically speaking, and if we take a look at it, that's pretty impressive because if we take a look at what is even a layer 2, right, much like Arbitrum, it is something that pretty much allows Ethereum, quite essentially, to be enjoyed, while at the same time not necessarily having to deal with some of the drawbacks, like for instance, the sky-high gas fees, the scalability issues. But then yeah, that's kind of basically what a layer 2 does, much like Arbitrum. Ethereum is an amazing layer 1 blockchain in my opinion, but it has its drawbacks. However, even besides that, I think what's even more special about this is that it's secured by Base. Now, Base is Coinbase's layer 2. Now, some people may be thinking, like, who cares about that? Well, here's the thing. The Base network, again, Coinbase is layer 2. Let's just let that sink in. Coinbase is not only publicly listed, but it's even on the S&P 500. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, well, why isn't Onyx really doing the best? Well, actually, historically speaking, it's done pretty okay ever since I started talking about it. But also on top of that, if let's say there was an altcoin season, I feel like this could very well play into the narrative of something like Onyx because, again, when we take a look at something like the Base network, it's been having pretty good momentum so far. However, here's the thing. The Base network currently doesn't have its own native token. But then the thing is, if we take a look at Base, even their description on X, right? They even talk about how Base is beginning to explore a network token. Now, why do I think this could actually be pretty impressive for the future of something like Onyx? Because if we take a look at, let's say, the Base network, right? Again, it's very massive, but right now there's no native token, so there's really no way to kind of really add more attention or something like that. But then if let's say they launch the token, and let's say that gains a lot of popularity, which necessarily wouldn't even surprise me because the Base network as it is already popular even without a native token currently. But let's say they do launch that token, let's say it becomes a lot more popular than right now, maybe some of it could very well trickle down to something like Onyx, who knows? This is just my perspective. And especially if let's say they launch it during kind of the beginning of an altcoin season maybe, that could just even maybe, cause more hypothetical things to trickle down to something like Onyx in terms of the attention and stuff like that. So overall, I do like what I'm seeing so far when it comes to Onyx. Sure, it may not be the most interesting out there, and sure, the Goliath testnet hasn't necessarily caused the most amount of attention, even though actually I think it's the biggest thing it's done so far. But still, overall, I like what I'm seeing. Again, built on Arbitrum, secured by Base. I just like that narrative when it comes to Onyx, and I think, hypothetically, if it did become better moving forward, just because of, let's say, the Base network does launch its native token, I think that right there could really play into the narrative of something like Onyx, because imagine, right? They launch the Base token, it has more attention, people take a look at Base, and then they take a look at projects on the Base network, and then maybe they kind of shift their focus and take a look at, okay, what projects are secured by, let's say, something like Base, and then maybe Onyx is there. So, again, the way I view it is that when it comes to some of Onyx, I still like its narrative. And this is on top of, by the way, right? If let's say, even assuming the Base network does launch its own native token, and assuming maybe some of the attention goes to some of Onyx, again, if let's say that maybe were to happen, that's already on top of Onyx pretty much being a miniature version of Stellar and as well as Ripple. And again, there's kind of, I think, this sort of need, I think, for alternatives beyond Stellar or Ripple that are quite compelling because there's actually not that many in my opinion. There's like, okay, we take a look at, if we exclude just XRP and XLM, right, we take a look at XDC, XCN, which of course we're talking about as of right now, or should I say Onyx, we take a look at ZBCN, or should I say Civic, which has an aspect of Solana, so that's a little bit kind of in a different, I would say, vibe when it comes to Onyx, but then it's pretty much still focused on payments and global trade and finance. However, we also take a look at XPR and as well as Swiftcoin. That's not that many. other than XCN, I think there's pretty much four compelling options within the space of payments and global chain finance, at least from what I can see as of right now. And then maybe, let's say we combine that maybe with Base launching its token, who knows? I think that right there really is why I think it could hypothetically be a pretty good narrative in my mind. And I still actually like the narrative of Onyx nonetheless. Let's say Base never launched its native token. Even then, I would still think that, the narrative when it comes to Onyx is good because having this miniature version of Stellar or Ripple, it's something that I do like. I do like seeing that actually. And overall, when I take a look at XCN going to the price of 25 cents, around at 27x from here, it's still nothing that would necessarily surprise me because, first of all, I get it. XCN has had a pretty big pullback, but at the same time, a lot of projects are having a pullback, and I don't think I've seen an altcoin season. And at the end of the day, though, right, the way you take a look at it is that around a $9 billion market cap, which it would have actually, considering current circulating supply at the price of 25 cents, it's still nothing that would necessarily surprise me. I don't think it's too outlandish. And again, especially if there's an altcoin season, which we'll have to wait and see because I don't think I've seen one during this cycle. Now, the reason why it wouldn't necessarily surprise me is because that right there is not even 5% of 200 billion. And when it comes to 200 billion, we just saw not too long ago XRP reach around that market cap. And that was even without an altcoin season. This is just the way to take a look at it. Is this ever going to overtake XRP? Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, achieving slightly under 5% of a market cap that it kind of pretty much reached not too long ago without an altcoin season, it just doesn't seem too ridiculous to me, especially if there was an altcoin season, right? Because if, let's say, there was an altcoin season, if XRP did way better than back then, it wouldn't surprise me, but still, even reaching less than 5% of what it reached without an altcoin season, like, I don't know why that would seem like such a tough task, but who knows? Only time will tell. I'm not telling you to do anything when it comes to XCN, but when I take a look at Onyx, I still like its focus overall. When I take a look at, again, payments, global chain finance, there's just not that much competition, I think, right now when it comes to Onyx within that space. There's some formidable competition, but I don't think there's that many in terms of the volume that seems like, that compelling to me. Like, I don't feel like there's 20 or 30 compelling options beyond this within this space. So yeah, I just haven't given up when it comes to Onyx. Now, when is there going to be an altcoin season? That's entirely not up to me, by the way. Like, for instance, whenever the market wants to wake up, like, I can't demand that. Like, do I want an altcoin season to happen? Absolutely. If it happened right now, I'd be happy, but then I can't make that happen right now. The only thing I can do is just control myself, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just literally dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. And yeah, it may seem a little bit boring actually in the grand scheme of things, but I just haven't given up. I'm still holding. And again, I just don't want to give up. I think I made it quite far already when it comes to XCN. I mean, when I was talking about it, the market cap was around 40 million. Now I get it, it's not even a billion, but still, it's in the hundreds of millions. It's not doing that bad. And sure, there's a pullback, but still, when I was believing in XCN back then, it's way harder than right now because now I've at least seen what it did a little bit, and that's not even without altcoin season. And even still, right, even back then I believed in it. So I think even as of right now for me, it's actually easier for me to believe in it than to just give up on it. That's the way I view it. Again, I'm not telling you to do anything, but personally, this is just what I'm doing. I'm just staying patient, holding, dollar cost averaging, and yeah, that's pretty much about it. But in the meantime, though, I do feel like I like the narrative when it comes to Onyx. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I greatly appreciate it. And also, I want to say thank you for watching this video. And I hope you all have a nice day. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.